Feathers v. Foam, the Great Blueberry War of 2025. A true story, more or less. The story you are about to hear is true. The names have not been changed to protect the innocent because, frankly, there are no innocents in this story. There is only a man, a garden, and a conflict that neither party started gracefully and neither party finished with dignity intact. What follows is a complete and accurate account of the events of that summer, recorded here so that history may judge us both fairly. It will not judge us both fairly, but the record will exist. That's something. Chapter 1. Eden. There is a particular kind of morning that belongs only to the people who are up before the world has decided what kind of day it intends to be. The sky is the color of a promise not yet kept. The dew is still on everything, on the hostas, on the lawn, on the rim of your coffee mug if you set it down for even a moment on the patio table. The air smells like earth and green things, and the faint ghost of last night's rain even when it didn't rain. It smells, in other words, like the beginning of something. I am always up for these mornings. In the winter, at my keyboard. In the spring, in my sanctuary. My neighbors, I suspect, are not. Their blinds are drawn. Their cars sit in their driveways like sleeping animals. The street is quiet in the particular way that streets are quiet when everybody with any sense is still horizontal. I do not begrudge them this. In fact, I prefer it this way. I simply know something they do not. The garden is different at this hour. It belongs to you. I take my coffee, black with a dash of C8 oil, because I am a man who has made certain commitments to himself, and I push open the back door and step into what I can only describe as my actual life. Not the other life. Not the emails and the orders and the deadlines and the list of things that needed doing before the other things could get done. This life. But one with soil under the fingernails, and a water feature that makes a sound like the world exhaling. Clug, clug, clug. That sound? If I could bottle that sound and sell it, I would retire a wealthy man. It is the sound of the small pump in a concrete tree stump water feature. Nothing elaborate, nothing from a magazine, just a stump and a pump, and a little recirculating magic that had somehow become the heartbeat of the whole backyard. You stopped noticing it after a while, the way you stop noticing your own heartbeat. But if it ever went quiet, you noticed that immediately. My heart did that once. I noticed. The gnomes are already at their posts. I should explain the gnomes. Every garden has a personality, and every gardener, whether they admit it or not, participates in the construction of that personality. Mine has evolved since we bought the new house with a mud patch in the back 2 years before, into something that could best be described as whimsical with structural integrity. There are raised beds and precise pH testing, and a fertilization schedule loosely maintained in my head. There's a partially hidden gnome in the blueberry bushes who appears to be either sleeping or plotting. There is another in the strawberry patch whose expression, depending on the light and your mood, ranges from cheerful to vaguely threatening like a smiling clown. His head is in fact a strawberry. There are more, maybe 24, all frozen in the daylight, waiting for the night to do their chores. They have been arriving for years. Some were gifts, but to be honest, mostly rescues from abusive stores that kept them in sterile environments without dirt and plants, devoid of life. I mean, I couldn't just leave them there. They kept watch. That was their job. They were, I believed, good at it. And if the task was too much for them, a dragon sits near the raised bed to help out. Seriously, did you think my garden would look different? I write fantasy books on the patio. My environment is everything to my imagination. I move through the garden the way I always do in the early morning, slowly, with my life-giving coffee, making my rounds. This is not inefficiency. This is intelligence gathering. You cannot tend a garden you have not observed. You cannot observe a garden you are rushing through. The morning walk is the briefest and most important meeting of my day, and I am both the chairman and the only attendee. Well, except for the gnomes, but they are only allowed to observe, never speak up. The blueberries first. There are several bushes, blue crop, patriot, arranged along the back fence in a configuration I had planned with some care. They are not yet producing. We are still in the long, patient season of tending without reward, of feeding and pruning and adjusting soil pH with the faith of a man who has done this before and knows that the berries are coming. They are always coming. You simply have to deserve them. I check the leaves, check the new growth, said a few words. I know it's not time yet. You're doing great. I see you. I am aware of how this sounds. I stand by it entirely. I talk to my garden regularly, just like I talk to the characters in my head when I write. Both are real in different ways, to me. Then the strawberries. The strawberry patch is my pride in a different way. Less architectural, more sprawling, a winding, irregular shape that follows its own logic along the side of the lawn. It is productive and chaotic and requires a certain tolerance for imperfection that has taken me some years to develop. Strawberries, I have learned, will not be managed. They will only be negotiated with. Ignore their runners and, well, grab the shovel. I crouched down to check the progress of the earliest fruit. That was when I saw it. A strawberry, sitting on the soil beside the patch. Not on the plant. Beside it. Placed there, almost with a kind of casual deliberateness. Half eaten. The flesh exposed. Bright red in the early light. The seed still visible along the edge where something had bitten cleanly through. I set my coffee down on the small bridge over the water feature, the same bridge my wife and I had gotten married on just a few years before. Now that, said the part of my brain that had spent years in the nursery trade diagnosing exactly this kind of thing, is a clue. I crouch lower, examine the surrounding plants, check for slug trails. None. Check the soil for more clues. None. Deer? No, not over our fence. Whatever did this was tidy. Whatever did this had, in fact, left the remainder behind like a calling card. In hindsight, I wonder if it was a warning of sorts, or perhaps a marking of territory. I stand up slowly. I look around the garden. I ask the strawberry gnome. After all, this was his domain. Nothing. Perhaps a shoulder shrug. The water feature clugs. Something, I think, picking up my coffee, is getting into my strawberries. Clearly master detective work. I am doing Sherlock Holmes proud. I filed the information carefully in the part of my mind reserved for problems that were not yet emergencies, and went back inside to top off my coffee. I have some gray hair on my head to prove my wisdom that has taught me that all problems are easier with more coffee. I am not alarmed. I am a professional. I have skills. Score, Mystery Garden Invader 1. Me, 0. The next morning was the same sky, the same dew, the same ritual. I pushed open the back door, coffee in hand, and stepped into the garden. The gnomes were at their posts. The water feature was clugging. And there, in the strawberry patch, bold as original sin and twice as unrepentant, was a new face. 2 black eyes staring at me. A robin. Not a large bird. Not objectively a threatening bird. Burnt orange chest, dark back, bright eyes. The general bearing of a creature who has never once in its life considered the possibility that it might be unwelcome somewhere. It had a strawberry in its beak. My strawberry. Our eyes met across the garden. Neither of us moved. The morning held its breath. The water feature clugged once softly, and faded into the background as the spaghetti western music whistled in my head. Suddenly, I was Clint Eastwood, crooked hat, nerves of steel. I looked at the robin. The robin looked at me. The strawberry, to its credit, said nothing. The gnome started backing up, and in that long, still, dew-soaked moment, something passed between us, some current of mutual recognition, some wordless agreement about what this was and what it was going to become. I took a slow sip of my coffee. The robin took a slow bite of my strawberry, my gun hand twitching by my holster. I went for my gun. Damn it! I don't have a gun. Hell, I don't even have a hat. Realization, I'm not Clint Eastwood. It was on. Score, Robin 2. Me, 0. Chapter 2, The Strawberry Campaign. I am a professional. I have certificates, I have years, I have a fertilization schedule that lives mostly in my head, which is where the best fertilization schedules live, because writing them down implies a rigidity that gardens simply will not tolerate. I have diagnosed root rot, treated iron deficiency, and once talked a Japanese maple back from the absolute brink through a combination of soil amendment and what I can only describe as emotional support. I know what I am doing out here, which is why, standing in my garden the morning after the great strawberry incident of 2025, I approached the problem the way any reasonable, credentialed, experienced nursery professional would approach it. I cover the patch with frost cloth. Done. Problem solved for under 20 bucks. Good morning. I am aware, says the part of my brain, that will not stop editorializing, that this is the garden equivalent of putting a sign on your sandwich in the office refrigerator. But the other part of my brain, the professional part, the certified part, tells that part to be quiet. The frost cloth is a physical barrier. The frost cloth is a proven deterrent. The frost cloth is the solution. The robin, it turns out, has his own opinions about frost cloth. Not about the cloth itself. The cloth is, by any reasonable assessment, adequate coverage for approximately 92% of the strawberry patch. I have tucked the edges. I have weighted the corners with smooth river stones I selected specifically for this purpose, because if you are going to defend your strawberries, you may as well do it with some aesthetic consideration. But the strawberry patch, as I have mentioned, is an irregular shape, winding, organic, following its own logic along the side of the lawn in a way that strawberries do when you have given them a few seasons to express themselves and have not been aggressive enough with the runners, which I have not, which I stand by. And at the far end of that winding irregular shape where the cloth does not quite reach because geometry is undefeated, there is a strawberry. One strawberry. The strawberry, apparently, because that is where he is. I am watching from the kitchen window with my second coffee, and I want to be clear that I am not hiding. I am simply observing from an interior vantage point that happens to require me to stand very still and slightly to the left of the window. Definitely not hiding. He finds the edge in approximately 4 seconds. I have been adjusting that cloth for 20 minutes. 4 seconds. He tips his head to one side in a way that I am choosing to interpret as accidental, but which I am privately certain is theatrical. Then he disappears under the edge and emerges with a strawberry, and I press my forehead gently against the window glass and breathe. My forehead smudges the window. My wife will notice that. I clean it. A two-front war is too much. Fine, I go outside and adjust the cloth. Score, Robin 3, me 0. This is how the next 2 weeks go. I adjust, he finds the edge. I adjust again, he finds the new edge. I add a stone, he goes around the stone. I add another stone, he goes around that one too. I run out of aesthetically appropriate stones and start using a brick I find near the shed, which ruins the whole visual appeal and frankly offends me on a personal level. And he goes around the brick. The gnomes watch all of this without comment. I have stopped asking them for input. Pretty sure one has a new smirk on his face. I give him the glare. The smirk remains. The strawberry gnome, whose domain this technically is, has the expression of a middle manager who knows exactly what is happening, but has decided that this particular situation is above his pay grade. Clearly a conflict avoidance issue which will come up at his annual review. However, I secretly respect it. I am beginning to feel the same way. Score, Robin 15 plus, me 0. What I do not expect and what I am not prepared for is what happens next. The strawberries end. Not because of him, well, mostly not because of him, but because the season turns the way seasons do, indifferent to the dramas being enacted beneath them. The strawberries are done. The harvest he didn't get is now jam. The patch goes quiet. I remove the frost cloth and the river stones and the brick that has been bothering me for 2 weeks, and I fold everything up and put it away, and I think, that's over. Sometimes I think stupid things. I look up. He is on the fence, just sitting there, watching me fold the frost cloth with what I can only describe as professional interest. Not flying away, not foraging, just present, in the way that certain problems remain present even after you think you have resolved them. I look at him. He looks at me. The strawberries are gone, I think, with the confidence of a man who believes the universe operates on logical principles. So you should probably move on. He does not move on. In fact, he made a little notch on top of the fence with a claw tip. What follows is a period I will refer to in my personal historical record as the interlude. The blueberries are turning, slowly, from green to pale blush, that precedes the deep blue, that precedes the moment I have been tending toward since March. We are not there yet. We are weeks away. The bushes are full and promising, and I check them every morning on my rounds with my coffee, touching the clusters gently, doing the math. He watches. He is also doing the math as he watches. I am wondering, is he supervising? Is he ensuring his humble servant takes proper care of his berries for him? That little bleep! I realize this gradually, the way you realize most uncomfortable things. Not all at once, but in accumulating small amounts that you keep filing under probably nothing until the file is too full to close. He is in the garden every day now, not always at the strawberry patch or blueberry bushes, sometimes at the water feature, which he has apparently decided is his personal spa, standing on a rock and doing what birds do in water with a complete lack of self-consciousness that I find frankly impressive. I consider leaving a washcloth out for him. I don't. Sometimes he is on the fence, in his spot, which has become his spot in the way that certain chairs in certain houses become certain people's chairs, and everyone just accepts it. Sometimes he's in the blueberry bushes, sometimes talking to them. I know it's not time yet. You're doing great. I see you. Wait, did he just quote me? He's not eating, just visiting, perching on a plant, tilting his head, looking at clusters with an expression I wear myself every morning. Not yet, that expression says, but soon. I stand at my kitchen window with my coffee. He sits in my blueberry bush. We are, I realize, with a feeling I cannot quite name, on the same schedule. My chest feels funny. The morning I walk out and find him actually in the bush, actually among the berries, my blood pressure does a thing that my doctor has asked me on multiple occasions and with increasing specificity not to let it do. I set my coffee down on the bridge with more force than is strictly necessary. He looks at me from inside the bush. The berries, I notice with some relief, even through the blood pressure situation, are not quite ready. Still a touch too light. Another few days, maybe a week. He knows this too. He is not eating. He is auditing. He hops to a slightly higher branch, tilts his head, and looks at the cluster nearest him with the focused attention of a man reviewing a spreadsheet he has already memorized. Then he looks at me, then back at the berries. I see you, that look says. I see all of this. I have plans. You may want to give them a quick shot of liquid fertilizer for that last push so my berries are extra tasty. I pick up my coffee, walk back to the patio, shaking my head, sit down, look at the bush where he is still sitting, still auditing, absolutely certain that what he is looking at is his. Oh no, I think, with the quiet dread of a general who has just understood the battlefield for the first time. No, no, no. The blueberry campaign is coming, and I am not ready. Score, Robin 15 plus. Me, 0. Blood pressure, rising. Chapter 3, Escalating Force. I am not a man who gives up easily. I want that on the record, maybe even my tombstone. If the scorecard is on my tombstone, I am coming back. I also want it on the record that everything I am about to describe was reasonable, proportionate, and the logical response of a rational adult human being to a completely manageable situation. Anyone who suggests otherwise was not there and does not have all the facts. The blueberries are dark. Not all of them, some of them. I give them the tickle test, nothing falls. But enough of them are dark that the morning audit has shifted from soon to days. And the particular anticipation that lives in a gardener's chest in that final stretch before harvest is humming at a frequency I can feel in my back teeth. Harvest is a glorious time. He feels it too. I can tell because he is on the fence at 5:45 in the morning when I come out with my coffee, and he does not leave. He just watches me walk to the bushes, watches me check the clusters, watches me do the math. I am also doing the math, his posture says. I know you are, my posture says back. We have gotten very good at talking without talking. It is the most communicative relationship I have with anyone before 8 in the morning, and there is an honesty to it that is oddly comforting. Phase 1 begins the way all reasonable military operations begin, with lumber. I construct individual frames around each blueberry bush, wood, netting, the whole architecture of a man who has thought this through and is confident in the solution. It takes most of a Saturday morning. I measure, I cut, I staple, I step back and look at what I have built and feel the specific satisfaction of a problem that has been solved by a person with a plan. The gnomes observe the construction with what I choose to interpret as admiration. The one that was previously smirking at me, I'm pretty sure just gave me a nod. If I had a Clint Eastwood hat, I would have tipped it back at him. The robin observes it from the fence with what I choose to interpret as nothing, because I am not ready to consider the alternative. Sometimes bearing an emotion or two can be healthy, right? By Sunday morning, he is inside the cage. I stand at the kitchen window. He is inside the cage. I have built him a dining room. He is inside the cage. The ground you see is uneven. My yard is not a parking lot. It has character. It has topography. It has, specifically, enough subtle variation in elevation along the fence line that the bottom of each cage does not sit flush against the soil in every location, which means there are gaps. And the gaps are, it turns out, exactly robin-sized. I also discovered during the process of trying to quickly check on a cluster to see if it is ready that the cage make it nearly impossible to do anything quickly. Every intervention requires dismantling. Every dismantling requires reassembling. I am spending more time managing the cages than I am managing the garden. I have built a prison that inconveniences only the warden. I dismantle the cages on a Tuesday with the quiet dignity of a man who is absolutely not defeated and is simply choosing a different strategy. Score, Robin 24, me 0, blood pressure still rising, lumber wasted. Phase 2 arrives in a small cardboard box from the internet. Net bags, individual mesh bags designed to slip over each bush. Zippers on the side, cinch at the bottom, impenetrable from the outside. I've read the reviews. I am confident. I spent a focused evening bagging my plants with the methodical attention of a man who has learned from his mistakes and is not going to make them again. They work. I want to sit with that for a moment because it does not happen often in this story. They work. I sit on my porch with my coffee. The taste of victory is sweeter than a bear claw, which, by the way, I don't eat. Stupid doctor. He lands on the fence the next morning and finds every bush wrapped. He hops from branch to branch with increasing irritation, pecking at the mesh, finding no purchase, finding no entry, finding nothing but the muffled outline of berries he cannot reach. I may have gotten up early just to enjoy this moment. I may have. All right, I did. I watch from the patio with my coffee and feel something I have almost forgotten. Victory. Not total victory, not the war, but a battle. A clear, unambiguous, properly defended battle. I raise my coffee mug slightly in his direction. He flies to the fence and sits there and looks at me. I look back. Score one for the warden, I think. He does not move for a long time. Score, Robin 24. Me, 1. Dignity, partially restored. Blood pressure, down a tad. Except, the bags are dense. Good dense, protective dense, but dense enough that on overcast days, and we have overcast days, this is the Pacific Northwest adjacent reality of a Yakima summer morning before the heat kicks in, the berries are not getting their full sun. And berries that do not get their full sun do not reach their full sweetness. And berries that do not reach their full sweetness are berries that have been protected but not fully realized. And that is not acceptable to me on a philosophical level or a culinary level. So on sunny mornings, when the light is good and the temperature is right, I remove the bags. I do this quickly, efficiently, with every intention of replacing them before I go back inside. You can probably see where this is going. He can also see where this is going. In fact, I am increasingly convinced he has been watching the weather forecasts. He is in the bush before I am back through the patio door. How? Just how? I do not have evidence that he has been sitting on a branch in the neighbor's tree monitoring my bag removal routine and timing his approach accordingly. I do not have evidence of this. What I have is a strong intuition developed over weeks of observation and a healthy respect for what I am dealing with. The bags go back on. The sunny mornings become a negotiation between berry quality and berry security that I conduct entirely alone on his schedule in my garden. Score, Robin 31, me 1. Weather, complicit. The next morning, on the patio, coffee in hand, questions plague my mind. Does the robin recognize me? Is this becoming personal for him as well? I'm curious enough about this question to Google it. Understand, for me, Googling is a two-handed phone operation. I have to put my coffee down. Clearly, this is serious. Simple question. Can robins recognize people? The actual Google answer? Yes, robins can recognize individual people, particularly those who feed them or interact with them regularly. Research shows they use visual cues like facial features, body movement, and gait to distinguish individuals. They are highly observant and can associate specific people with safety and food. Because of their ability to recognize friendly faces, robins can become quite tame, often approaching, following, or even eating from the hands of people they trust. The Google answer continues with words like facial recognition, behavioral associations, memory, and intelligent observers, blah, blah, blah. This answer is not comforting. Not comforting at all. This is personal, apparently, for both of us. It is during one of these sunny morning incursions that the Nerf guns enter the story. I want to be precise about the origins because context matters here. The guns were purchased for my granddaughter and me. That is the truth, and I stand behind it fully. We had a very good time with them. They're quality equipment. What happened next was simply a matter of resource allocation in a time of need, and any reasonable person would have made the same call. There are two of them. One lives on the patio table. One lives next to the raised bed. Both are loaded. I have assessed the sight lines from both positions, and I am satisfied with the coverage. My wife did not ask about the guns, at least not at this point. I have not explained the guns. I don't plan to, ever. Some marriages are maintained through strategic silence. The thing about Nerf guns and Robins is this: the guns do not hurt them. I am not trying to hurt him. I am trying to communicate a boundary through the universal language of mild inconvenience. And it works, mostly, in the sense that when I fire, he leaves the bush and retreats to the fence and gives me a window of 30 to 45 seconds before he comes back. 30 to 45 seconds. I time it once out of scientific curiosity. 37 seconds. He lands on the fence post, catches his breath, recalculates, returns. I fire again. He leaves again, returns in 34 seconds. I am sitting on the patio eating lunch with a Nerf gun beside my plate, and I am firing it every 30 to 40 seconds. I have been doing this for 20 minutes, and I am not even a little bit tired of it, and I think that tells you something about where we are in the story. My wife appears at the patio door. She looks at me. She looks at the gun. She looks at the robin on the fence. She looks back at me. She goes back inside without a word. This is either acceptance or the quiet accumulation of evidence. I choose not to investigate which. He has a move. I need to describe the move because the move is important, and it is, if I am being fully honest, kind of impressive. He comes in fast and low when I'm not watching, when I am deadheading something or checking the soil moisture or momentarily distracted by literally anything. And he grabs a berry, not from the netted clusters, but from any branch I have been careless enough to leave unprotected. He does not leave immediately. He goes to the fence. He sits on the fence. He eats the berry on the fence. Slowly, looking directly at me the entire time. I am not projecting when I tell you this is deliberate. I have watched it happen enough times now to understand that the retrieval of the berry is only half the operation. The other half is the consumption. The public, unhurried eye contact consumption on my fence, in my garden, with my berry. He is taunting me. The first few times I simply reload and fire and he flies off mid-berry, and I consider that a partial win. Then one afternoon he does it, and I fire and he does not fly off. He shifts his weight slightly on the post. That is all. He shifts his weight and continues eating. I fire again. He blinks. I lower the gun. He finishes the berry. Looks at me. And then, I know how this sounds. I know exactly how this sounds, but I saw what I saw. He ruffles his feathers once. Slowly, the way you roll your shoulders after something that did not go the way the other party hoped, and he flies away with the unbothered energy of a creature who has never once been impressed by anything I have done. I sit with that for a moment. The garden is quiet. The water feature plugs. I am tired. I am ready to call it a day. I am about to walk inside. And I realize my ammo bucket is nearly empty. I spend 30 minutes muttering under my breath things I can't repeat here, picking up nearly 100 Nerf bullets. Truth be known, a year later, and I still find them. But then, it happens. All the shots, all the bullet picking up is suddenly worth it. I clip him. He's eating a berry on the fence. His back is to me, no doubt to mock me with his confidence. I aim carefully like always, and slowly, ever so slowly, I squeeze the trigger. There's a faint click as the blue-tipped cylindrical orange bullet leaves the gun and sails toward the robin. I watch it fly, waiting for the inevitable curve it always makes just before it gets to him. But it doesn't curve. I hit a stray tail feather. Yes! The word comes out of me before I can stop it. Out loud, into the garden. Yes, possibly with a fist pump. Probably with a fist pump. The spaghetti western music echoing in my head suddenly transforms into the Rocky theme song. I stand, joy in my heart, waiting for him to fly away, trembling in fear. He sits on the fence post. He looks at me with both eyes, the way birds do when they turn their head to bring you into focus. And there is a long moment where neither of us moves, and I am waiting for something. Retreat? Acknowledgement? The basic dignity of a flinch? He does not flinch. He looks at my gun. He looks at me. He looks at my gun again. And then, I promise you this is true, he shifts his weight, lifts the foot closest to me, extends one talon slightly forward, and holds it there for just a moment before settling back onto the post and looking away. The middle talon. He gives me the middle talon and then looks away like I am no longer worth his attention. I got flipped to the birdie by a birdie. Now that could actually go on my tombstone. There's a certain poetic ring to it. I stand on my patio with a Nerf gun in my hand and a fist that is no longer raised and a victory that has evaporated completely. And I understand with the total clarity of a man who has just received an honest answer to a question he has been asking all summer. I am not going to win this war. Not the way I thought I was going to win it. Not with foam and netting and lumber and river stones and a brick that offended my aesthetic sensibility and will continue to do so for as long as I live. He is still on the fence. I am still on the patio. The water feature clugs. Score, Robin, a lot. Me, 1. The gap, significant. My pride, composting in a raised bed. I sit back down, pick up my coffee, look at the garden I have been defending all summer long, and try to remember for just a moment what it felt like before any of this started. It felt like sanctuary, I think. It still does. Something else thinks back, surprising me. I look at him. He is looking at the blueberry bushes. Chapter 4, The Dark Night of the Soul. There is a moment in every conflict when the noise stops. Not the actual noise. The water feature is still plugging. The neighbor's dog is doing whatever it does on Tuesday mornings. The lawnmower has started somewhere on the block with the particular optimism of a man who believes this will be the week he gets ahead of it. But the internal noise, the strategy and the counter-strategy, and the mental inventory of foam dart trajectories and sun angles and optimal bag removal windows, that noise, it stops. And in the quiet that follows, a man is left alone with himself and a cup of coffee and some questions he has been too busy losing a war to ask. I am on the patio, he is on the fence. Neither of us is doing anything in particular. It starts, as most honest reckonings do, with an inventory. I am a list maker by nature, not the kind who writes lists down. I've mentioned the fertilization schedule, but the kind who runs them internally, usually in the early morning, usually with coffee, usually while staring at something that isn't quite the thing I'm actually thinking about. Today, the list is this war. What has it cost me? One Saturday morning building cages that a bird defeated before Sunday breakfast. An unknown, significant amount of river stones now permanently reassigned from aesthetic duty to strategic duty. One brick that still offends me every time I look at it. Approximately 30 minutes of my life on my hands and knees in the garden, picking up nearly 100 foam darts, muttering things that I will not be repeating here or anywhere. The accumulated dignity of a certified nursery professional who has been outwitted consistently and completely by an animal with a brain the size of a walnut. I pause on that last one. A walnut. I hold my coffee with both hands and consider what it means that the walnut has been winning. The water feature clucks. He shifts his weight on the fence post and looks at the blueberry bushes with the calm assessment of a property manager reviewing an investment that is performing exactly as expected. I follow his gaze to the bushes, my bushes, the blue crop and the patriot that I have fed and pruned and pH tested and talked to since March, the bushes I deserved the harvest from, the bushes I have been defending with foam and lumber and mesh and river stones and one aesthetically offensive brick and approximately 100 projectiles that are now distributed throughout my garden like the world's most humiliating Easter egg hunt. And here's the thing that hits me sitting on that patio that I was not expecting to get hit with. They're doing great. The bushes, they are full, dark, and heavy with the kind of berry that you only get when you've been paying attention all season, when you have checked the pH and caught the iron deficiency early and talked to the plants in the morning, even though you are aware of how that sounds. They are doing great because I took care of them. And so did he, in his way. Not the caring I did, not the fertilizer and the pruning and the adjusted soil chemistry, but the mornings he sat in the branches and checked the clusters. The way he waited with the same patience I had for the color to shift from green to blush to deep, perfect blue. The way he knew, when I knew, that we were close. He was invested. I sit with that word for a moment because it surprises me. And here is what I have not let myself think about all summer, filed carefully under probably nothing, alongside with all the other things I have not let myself think about. He chose this garden, not the garden next door, not the park 2 blocks away, not anywhere else. This garden, with its uneven ground and its gnomes and its dragon and its concrete stump water feature that sounds like the world exhaling. Why? I look around at what I have built over 2 years and what was a mud patch when we moved in. The raised beds along the fence, the strawberry patch winding along the side, the runners negotiated into submission, the blueberries along the back, the astilbe hostas, the bridge over the water feature that is just wide enough to set a coffee mug on, the gnomes at their posts, the dragon near the raised bed keeping watch. I think about what I said to myself the first morning I stood in the garden and understood what it was becoming. It belongs to you, I had thought. And I think about a robin arriving in a new garden in the early spring, finding a water feature and shelter and food and the particular quality of stillness that only exists in a garden that someone loves. Finding, in other words, a sanctuary. The same thing I found. My chest says that funny thing again. I have been thinking of this as an invasion, a border crossed without permission, a resource seized by an unauthorized party, a conflict with a winner and a loser and a scorecard that has been running since the first half-eaten strawberry appeared on the soil next to my patch like a tiny, infuriating calling card. But here's the question I have been avoiding. Who was here first? Not me, not in any way that matters to a robin. I arrived 2 years ago with my raised bed plans and my pH meter and my gnomes rescued from abusive stores. I planted things and called it mine. He arrived in the spring and found food and water and safety and called it his. We were both right. We are both, it turns out, doing the same thing. I look at him on the fence. He looks at the bushes, the water feature clugs. He didn't invade my sanctuary, I think, with the slow arrival of an understanding that has been working its way toward me all summer. He found his own. I think about the mornings, the specific quality of early morning in this garden, the sky not yet decided, the dew on everything, the sound of the pump in the stump, the way the garden is different at this hour, the way it belongs to you. I have had this thought every morning for 2 years and believed it was mine. He has been here for those mornings too. Not every morning, but enough of them. Sitting on the fence or standing in the water feature or perching in the blueberry bushes doing whatever the robin version of my morning rounds look like. Checking the patch, assessing the harvest, being present in the garden at the hour when the garden is most itself. We have been sharing these mornings all summer, and I have been calling it a war. I finish my coffee. He is not moved from the fence. I look at him properly for the first time, not as a target, not as an adversary, not as the walnut brained nemesis who has been defeating me since May, just as a bird. A small, burnt orange chested, bright eyed bird who picked my garden out of every available garden and decided this was the one worth coming back to. Every day, all summer, even when I was shooting at him. The thought arrives with a comedy I was not expecting, and I laughed out loud, alone on my patio, at the sheer persistence of it. He came back every day to a garden where a man was actively shooting foam darts at him, and his response was to clock the 37-second reload time and factor it into his approach. I would, if I am being fully honest with myself, respect that in anyone. I do, if I am being fully honest with myself, respect it in him. The scorecard, I have been thinking about the scorecard. Specifically, I have been thinking about something I noticed during the interlude, filed carefully under probably nothing, and retrieved now for honest examination. The notch on the fence post? I told myself I imagined it. I told myself it was existing where on the post, a pre-existing mark, a trick of the morning light. I've been telling myself for weeks with the practiced conviction of a man who does not want to follow a thought to its conclusion. But here, in the dark night of the soul, on the patio with the coffee finished, and the morning fully arrived and nowhere left to hide, he has been keeping score. Not my score, his score. The notches have been accumulating on that fence post since the first strawberry, since the first froth cloth outmaneuvered, since the first cage entered and exited before I finished my second coffee. I think about the middle talon, the deliberate, unhurried, completely unbothered middle talon delivered by a bird who had just been clipped by a foam dart and did not flinch, and I understand now what that was. That was not irritation. That was not reflex. That was a closing argument. He knew the score the whole time. The water feature clugs. I look at the fence post. I look at him. He looks at the blueberry bushes. Of course he does, I think. Chapter 5, The Armistice. There's a protocol to ending a war. Not the dramatic kind, not the signing tables and the dress uniforms and the photographs for history. I am not naive enough to think this rises to that level, despite what the scorecard on the fence post might suggest. But even small wars have a moment where the fighting stops and something else begins, and that moment deserves to be handled with some care. I've been thinking about the branches, specifically 3 branches on the big blue crop in the corner, full clusters, dark, perfect, heavy, with the particular weight of a berry that has arrived exactly where it was always going. I've been watching those branches for 2 days now. Net bags on, net bags off, net bags on, the usual negotiation, and I have been thinking, what if I just didn't? What if I just didn't bag those 3 branches? What if I walked past them in the morning and checked the other clusters and left those 3 alone? Not because I am giving up, not because I have lost. The scorecard, whatever it says, is not the whole story, and I want that on the record. But because there's a difference between losing a war and choosing peace. And I am choosing, to be clear, in my own internal record, which one this is. I am choosing peace. The gnomes, I feel, would approve. They are, at their core, creatures of the garden, and rather than creatures of conflict. the one with the smirk, especially the one with the smirk. I do it on a Tuesday morning. No ceremony, no announcement. I come out with my coffee in the early light, the sky still working out its intentions, the water feature doing its things, and I do my rounds. Blueberries first. I check the netted clusters. Good, dark, close. I check the progress on the Patriot. I deadhead something near the raised bed that has been needing attention for a week. And then I walk past the three branches on the blue crop in the corner. I do not touch the bags because there are no bags on those branches. There are no bags on those branches because I did not put bags on those branches intentionally. I set my coffee down on the bridge and stand there for a moment, looking at those three uncovered clusters, and I feel something I was not entirely prepared to feel, which is a very specific and kind of relief. Like putting down something heavy that you have been carrying so long you stopped noticing the weight. I pick my coffee back up, turn around. He is on the fence. Of course, he is on the fence. He is always on the fence. I am beginning to suspect he does not actually have anywhere else to be, which is a thought I immediately file under not my business. We look at each other across the garden in the morning light. I raise my coffee mug. Not high, not theatrical, just a small lift. An acknowledgement, one gardener to another, in the way that gardeners acknowledge each other across fence lines in the early morning when no one else is watching. He tips his head. One small, precise, completely unbothered tip of the head. Terms accepted, that tip says. I take a sip of my coffee. He flies to the blue crop in the corner. I watch him work with those three branches with a professionalism that I have no choice but to respect. He is not frantic about it. He is not greedy. He moves through the clusters with the same methodical attention I bring to my own harvest, checking, selecting, taking what is ready and leaving what isn't. He knows what is ready. Of course he does. I harvest the netted clusters while he harvests his. We work the bush together in the early morning, the two of us, in a silence that is not uncomfortable for the first time all summer. The water feature clugs. A bird I don't recognize sings something brief and cheerful from the neighbor's tree and then stops, apparently satisfied. My bowl fills. His branches empty. We finish at approximately the same time, which I decide is not a coincidence, and is in fact the garden's way of underlining a point it has been trying to make since May. He flies to the fence post, looks at the stripped branches, looks at my bowl, looks at me. I look at my bowl, look at his branches, look at him. Good harvest, I think, in his direction. He ruffles his feathers once, settles, looks away with the satisfied air of a creature whose affairs are in order. I eat 3 berries standing right there at the bush, which is my tradition and my right, and they are extraordinary. Dark and sweet and warm in the morning sun, and tasting exactly like the thing you waited for when you deserved it. I wonder if his tastes the same. I decide they probably do. The rest of the summer settles into something I would not have predicted in May. Not friendship. I want to be precise about that because I think precision matters here because I am a professional and professionals are precise. We are not friends. Friends imply a reciprocity, a warmth, a mutual investment in each other's well-being that I am not prepared to claim on his behalf. He is a robin. I am a man. We have different priorities and different schedules and different opinions about who the strawberries belong to that I suspect will resurface next spring. But something. He is in the garden every day, which has not changed. The water feature is still his spa, which has not changed. His spot on the fence is still his spot, which has not changed. But the quality of his presence is different now, or perhaps the quality of my attention to his presence is different, which may be the same thing. I stopped tracking the scorecard, not because the score doesn't matter. It matters, it will always matter. I was a certified nursery professional being outwitted by a walnut, and that is not a thing a man simply releases. But because the scorecard was a way of paying attention to the wrong thing, the war was the wrong frame. The garden is not a battlefield, it never was. It is a sanctuary. It belongs to both of us. The gnomes knew this the whole time, I think. Even the smirking one. Especially the smirking one. Autumn comes the way it always does in Yakima, not gradually but decisively. Like a door closing on a room you loved. The mornings get sharp. The light changes its angle. The garden begins its long exhale, pulling everything back in, going quiet in the particular way that gardens go quiet when they are resting rather than ending. The robin is less present now. His visits are shorter, less purposeful. The berries are done. The strawberries are done. There is less reason to be here, and he is, if nothing else, a practical creature. One morning in late September, I come out with my coffee, and he's on the fence in his spot, and we do our thing. The mutual acknowledgement, the shared silence, the nothing in particular of two creatures who have reached an understanding. And then he is gone. Not dramatically, not with ceremony. He just isn't there the next morning, and the morning after that, and the one after that. I wonder about him. I may have even worried. No, take that off the record. No worry. Nope. The garden goes on without him, the way gardens go on without things. The gnomes keep their posts. The dragon watches the raised bed. The water feature clugs into the cooling air. I find a foam dart near the strawberry patch in October, half buried in the mulch. I pick it up and look at it for a long moment before putting it in my pocket. Evidence, I think, of something. And then it is spring again. The mornings return to that particular quality, the sky undecided and the dew on everything, the smell of green things waking up. I push open the back door with my coffee and step into the garden and do my rounds. Check the blueberries, check the strawberries, where the first runners of the new season are already making their opinions known. Say a few words to the bushes that I will not be repeating here because some things are private. I am crouching at the strawberry patch, checking the earliest crowns when I feel it. That specific, particular quality of being watched. I look up slowly. He is on the fence. He is in his spot. Same unbothered posture, same bright eyes with the general bearing of being a creature who has never once considered the possibility of being unwelcome somewhere. In a very strange and odd way, his presence is comforting. In a world that often feels like it's spinning out of control, there is a normalcy to the robin sitting on my fence, watching me. We look at each other across the garden in the early morning light. You're back, I think. He tips his head. Obviously, that tip says. Even walnuts can enjoy good sarcasm, apparently. I look at the strawberry patch, look at the fence, look at him. I stand up slowly, coffee in hand, and I go back inside and I come out and I put the Nerf gun on the patio table, just in case. Then I go back inside and I come back out again with a second mug, and I set it on the bridge next to mine, empty, pointed at the fence, which is insane. And I know it is insane, and I do it anyway because this is my garden, and I am allowed to be insane in it if I want to. A smirk returns to the gnome who thinks I don't notice. I do. The water feature clugs. The gnomes are at their posts. The dragon keeps watch. He is on the fence. I am on the patio. Here we go, I think, with something that is not quite a smile and not quite a sigh, and is mostly just the feeling of a summer arriving with its shape already in it, already full of something, already a story before it has even begun. The coffee steams in the morning air. Here we go. Epilogue. The record. The conflict herein described was real. The garden is real. The gnomes are real, all 24 of them, and they have opinions about everything that happened and have chosen wisely to keep those opinions to themselves. Plastic gnomes break very easily. Just saying. The robin is real. He returned this spring as reported. He was on the fence in late February in what has been a very early spring here in Yakima in 2026. He was in his spot, with the posture of a creature who has never doubted his welcome anywhere. The scorecard on the fence post is real. I have not counted the notches. I do not intend to. 3 big branches on the big blue crop in the corner will remain unnetted. This is not weakness or defeat. This is diplomacy. There is a difference, and I know what it is, even if the scorecard suggests otherwise. And the middle Talon? Well, the Nerf gun is on the patio table, loaded. It will stay there. Some wars don't end, they just find their terms. The water feature close. Court adjourned.